Hello everyone. I'm the storyteller from the channel Whispered Tales and I'm here to help you today. I know you use this video to fall asleep, so before that, like the video and subscribe to the channel. Also, where are you from? At what time are you watching? Now, get comfortable and relax. The first time Eleanor noticed the fog, it hadn't yet touched the village. It lingered instead beyond the Pinewood Hills, where the trees thinned and the land fell away into marsh. It was pale and distant, a low-lying ghost sprawled across the earth. The kind of thing most wouldn't pay mind to. But Eleanor wasn't like most. She stood at the window of her inherited farmhouse, a chipped mug of lukewarm tea in her hands, watching that ghostly veil shift at the horizon. It wasn't thick, not yet. But it pulsed. Slowly. In and out. As if it were breathing. No one else in Alder Hollow seemed to notice. They passed their days in the small village square, under the faded banners of festivals long gone, speaking in quiet voices. They never mentioned the fog, not even when it crept closer. On the third day, it kissed the bottom of the hills. On the fifth, it slithered between the trees. By the end of the first week, it had swallowed the forest whole. Eleanor had come to Alder Hollow after her grandmother's passing, the last of her family line. The will had been simple: the house is yours. Burn the journal. Do not go into the woods. She hadn't burned the journal. She hadn't even found it. The house was old, groaning in the night like a thing that dreamed. Its wallpaper peeled like shedding skin, and the wooden floor sighed with every step. Yet, something about it felt familiar. Not like memory, but muscle, as though her bones remembered what her mind had long forgotten. She tried to settle into routine: morning walks to the bakery, afternoons tending the garden, evenings with books. But sleep was a stranger. Each night, as darkness fell and the fog curled closer around the village, Eleanor found herself staring out the window, always back to the trees. Waiting. For what, she couldn't say. It was on the ninth night that she heard the first whisper. A low hiss, like breath through a cracked door. She had been nearly asleep, the kind of near sleep where thoughts melt and time bends. But the sound pulled her back, heart quickening, eyes wide in the dark. She waited. Listened. Nothing. And then, there. Just beneath the sound of the wind. You see it too, don't you? Eleanor sat upright in bed, breath caught in her throat. She told herself it was a dream. Just a dream. But dreams don't leave your mouth dry. They don't make you sweat cold. And they certainly don't follow you into the next night. On the 10th night, she locked every door. On the 11th, she boarded the windows. By the 12th, she stopped sleeping altogether. The fog had reached the edge of the property now. It curled over the stone wall like a living thing, tendrils stretching out like fingers. She watched it for hours, unmoving, unblinking. It didn't creep closer. But it never left. And then there were the eyes. Not real ones. Not exactly. But when she stood too long at the window, or stayed outside past dusk, she felt them. Watching. Waiting. That same whisper came again, this time from the trees. It waits for you, Eleanor. How did it know her name? She finally found the journal on the 13th night. It was buried beneath a loose floorboard in the attic, wrapped in yellowing cloth and sealed with wax. The cover was leather, stained dark, perhaps once red, now closer to rust. It had no title. No name. She opened it anyway. The writing inside was cramped and curling, etched in ink that bled through the pages. It wasn't her grandmother's hand. No. This was older. Much older. March 4, 1891. The fog returned today. The children saw it first. They never lie about these things. March 5th. We must prepare. It always begins the same, thin at first, then thick like tar. The air will grow still. Then come the voices. March 7th, avoid the woods. Burn the fields. Do not speak its name. March 9th, they saw it, tall, in the trees. No face, only the idea of one. I prayed. It watched me pray. The entries went on like that, jagged, frenzied. Words scratched out. Pages torn. Names were mentioned and crossed out again. Auden. Marion. Ellis. Some entries ended mid-sentence. Others were blank, save for a single symbol, an eye inside a circle, drawn over and over again. The last entry was dated nearly a century ago. April 1st, I buried the others. It didn't want them. It was never about them. It wants a door. A key. It wants memory. And it knows mine. If you find this, run. Do not look into the fog. Do not listen. Do not remember. But Eleanor had looked. And she had listened. And now, the fog did not wait at the woods anymore. It pressed against her windows. The next morning, there were footprints. Small, bare feet, dozens of them, leading from the woods to the base of her house. They didn't stop at the porch. They circled the home, again and again. Like something pacing. She called the local sheriff. He came, squinting at the prints in the dirt. Odd, he muttered, scratching his chin. Could be raccoons. Raccoons don't walk upright. They don't have toes. And they don't leave long, dragging scratches up and down your walls. The dreams got worse. Eleanor found herself walking through fog-choked corridors, endless hallways that pulsed and throbbed like lungs. The walls wept. The ceiling breathed. She was always searching. For what, she didn't know. Sometimes she heard the journal's voice, not reading, but screaming. Sometimes she saw her grandmother, standing at the end of the hall, her eyes burned black. Sometimes she was the one burning. And always, the fog waited. In the waking world, it never entered the house. But in dreams, it poured through every crack and crevice. One night, it spoke directly. Not a whisper this time. Not a hiss. But a voice. A voice like earth splitting open. Open the door, Eleanor. She found the door on the 15th day. It wasn't there before. Not in any memory. Not in any blueprint. It stood behind a false wall in the basement, a place she had never dared to go until now. The door was carved from black wood, marked with that same circle eye symbol etched deep. It pulsed beneath her hand. Warm. She did not open it. But she did not walk away either. She stood there for a long, long time. Listening. Waiting. Breathing. The door called to her. Not with voice, not with words. But in pulses. A soft thudding in the walls, in the floorboards, in her chest, as though the house had grown a second heartbeat. Eleanor found herself returning to it. Morning, noon, and long after midnight. She didn't touch it. Not again. But she listened. Always listened. Behind the door, the fog breathed. On the 16th night, the village bells rang. There was no reason for it, no festival, no fire, no warning. But the bells howled like panicked animals, shrill and constant. Eleanor dressed in the dark, stumbling out onto the porch. The village lay beneath a shroud. Not fog this time, not quite. It was thicker. Darker. Not smoke. Not mist. It was memory. She could feel it in her teeth. The square was full of people. They gathered silently beneath the tower, all eyes turned upward toward the bell as it swung. No one moved to stop it. No one spoke. Eleanor stepped closer. "What's going on?" she whispered, too afraid to raise her voice. Old Mrs. Calder turned, her face pale and slack. The fog is remembering. Eleanor blinked. What? The fog remembers, Mrs. Calder said again. It knows who was lost. And who stayed behind. Then the bells stopped. And silence fell like a stone. That night, the air in the house changed. It grew wet, like breath. The wallpaper bubbled. The windows sweat. And when she checked the attic, the journal was gone. Only a single page remained, stuck to the floor, glued by something black and sticky. The ink was fresh. It read, "The door opens from the inside." By the 17th day, the fog had swallowed the village whole. Shops were closed. Roads gone. No mail. No signal. The world stopped just outside the veil. You could walk into it, some said. But no one ever came out. Eleanor tried to stay calm, tried to hold on to rhythm, breakfast, books, candlelight. But every hour grew heavier. And every night, the door pulsed louder. She started seeing shapes in the fog. Not faces, not clearly. But hints. Long limbs. Wide shadows. Something tall, something slow. Something that didn't need to move to be near. Sometimes, it was inside the garden. Sometimes, it was across the field. Once, it was standing at her bedroom window, on the second floor. The dreams became different. Not nightmares, not exactly. They felt more like, returning. She wandered through forests of bone-white trees. She floated through houses underwater. She heard songs in reverse. And once, just once, she dreamed of herself, as a little girl, standing at the black door, whispering, "I remember now." She woke the next morning to knocking. 3 slow raps at the front door. She crept down the stairs, every step aching with dread. Outside, the fog leaned in. And standing in the center of it was a child. A boy, no older than 10. Barefoot. Silent. Eyes wide and white. He held something in his hands. She opened the door a crack. "Who are you?" The boy did not answer. He held up a photograph. It was old, curled at the edges. In the picture stood Eleanor, maybe 7 years old, smiling in front of the farmhouse. Next to her, the boy. Same pale face. Same wide eyes. She dropped the photo. When she looked back up, he was gone. Eleanor searched the house. Top to bottom. She pulled every drawer, checked every crawlspace. In the bottom of her grandmother's wardrobe, she found a shoebox wrapped in twine. Inside, more photographs. Dozens. And in every single one, there was the boy. Sometimes standing beside her. Sometimes watching from a distance. Sometimes in windows. Always with the same blank expression. Written on the inside of the box lid, in faded ink, "He is the one the fog forgets." The whispers returned. They no longer waited for night. They came at noon, at dawn, even as she washed dishes or stood in the garden. Whispers from the trees. From the walls. From inside the mirror. "Open the door, Eleanor. You left it open once. Long ago. She's waiting." And then, once, a different voice, not deep and foreign, but soft. Familiar. Her grandmother's voice. "The door is not a thing. It is a choice." On the 19th night, the door opened. She didn't turn the knob. She didn't touch it. But there it was, slightly ajar, breathing warm air into the cold basement. Eleanor stood at the top of the stairs, the candle in her hand trembling. The darkness behind the door wasn't empty. It was moving. She didn't go through. She closed the door. Locked it. Nailed boards across it. Painted over it. And still, she heard it whisper. Still, it called. That night, the boy returned. He was standing at the foot of her bed, silent. I know you now, she whispered. He said nothing. But she felt it, a pressure behind her eyes. A memory trying to surface. Flash, a cabin. The same woods. She's 5 years old, chasing fireflies. The boy is there, laughing, holding a jar. Her grandmother calling from the porch, voice tight with fear. Inside, Eleanor. Now. A scream from the trees. A shape in the fog. The boy turns. Smiles. Then is gone. Not lost. Taken. She woke sobbing. Not from fear. From guilt. The next morning, the village was empty. Every door swung open. Every house silent. No footprints. No bodies. No sounds. Only fog. And the boy, waiting at the edge of the woods. That night, Eleanor stood before the door one last time. The boards were gone. The lock melted. The paint peeled. Only the door remained, pulsing softly. She took the candle. She took the photograph. She took the journal's last page. And she stepped through. What she found was not a room. Not a hallway. Not even a space that could be named. It was a world without time. A memory stretched thin, looping on itself. The fog surrounded her, filled her, carried her. And through it, she saw them. The village, trapped in pause. The boy, still waiting. Her grandmother, weeping. And the watcher. Tall. Wide. Empty where a face should be. Eyes not on its head, but across its body. Every inch watching. It did not speak. It remembered. And it showed her everything. Her childhood. Her first dreams of the forest. Her first visit to the door. She had opened it, long ago. Just once. And it had never closed. The fog was not a mist, or a veil, or a weather. It was a wound. Eleanor floated within it, but not with her body. The shell of her form had been left behind. What drifted here was deeper. Her memory. Her fear. Herself. The watcher did not move. It had no need to. It was the movement. Its presence unraveled her piece by piece, not with pain, but with precision. Memories were peeled away like old paint. Moments she had buried, lost time, her therapist had once called it, rose to the surface like bones from silt. She saw herself as a girl, returning to the forest. Not once. Not twice. But often. In one memory, she walks alone at dusk, clutching a broken doll. In another, she hums a tune no child should know, one with no words, only long, low tones that echoed through trees like calls from the deep. In every scene, the fog waits. And the boy is there. Watching her. But not from outside the memory. From inside it. She tried to speak to him, to ask questions, to beg for clarity. But language didn't survive here. Only emotion. Only remembrance. He reached out to her, pale fingers brushing her palm. In that touch, a flood. They were not strangers. They were not even children when they first met. They were remnants, shards of a story told long ago, retold again and again until it forgot its original voice. The boy was not a boy. He had once been like her, alive, whole. But he had gone too deep. He had listened too long. And now, he was the fog's memory. The watcher loomed, not closer, never closer, but larger. It fed not on flesh, but attention. Each thought she gave it made it more real. And the more real it became, the less real everything else was. She began to forget her house. Then the village. Then the faces of her parents, her friends. The sound of wind. The feeling of morning light. Her own name. But then, a whisper. Not from the fog. From inside her chest. A voice. Small. Angry. Familiar. You are not only memory. You are will. Her grandmother's voice. She remembered the journal. She remembered the warning, do not look into the fog. Do not listen. Do not remember. But it was too late for that. And maybe, just maybe, the warning was meant not to protect her, but to prepare her. The watcher blinked. Not visibly. But within her, a ripple of awareness, like turning a page in a book written by something else. And suddenly, Eleanor could see it. Not as a monster. Not as a god. But as a shape. A pattern. The idea of watching, of waiting, of gathering all lost things. It was not evil. It simply was. A lighthouse built from absence. A cathedral of missing names. The boy took her hand again. He led her through the memory fog, down a corridor made of time. Each step brought sensation. Cold air. Wooden floors. The scent of mildew, dust, and candle wax. And then, she was back. The basement was silent. The black door stood wide open. The fog no longer pulsed from it. It simply lingered. Thin now. Tired. She stepped back into her house. The clock ticked. The tea had gone cold. She was whole. But not untouched. The next morning, the fog outside was gone. Not retreated. Not shifted. Gone. The village reappeared in slow motion. One by one, the doors opened. People stepped into the light like newborn things, dazed, blinking. The square was quiet. No one spoke of the lost days. No one mentioned the fog. But they looked at Eleanor differently. As if they knew. Mrs. Calder passed her a parcel wrapped in linen. Inside was a book, hand-bound, ink still fresh. The cover read, "The fog does not forget." Beneath that, a second line, "But you can." That night, Eleanor burned the journal. Not the new one. The old one, the one from the attic. Its pages curled in the hearth, blackened and vanished. The smoke did not rise. It sank. She boarded the basement. Not out of fear. Out of respect. The door no longer called. But she could still feel it, a presence in the wood grain, in the hum of the lights, in the hush between thoughts. A thing remembered only when needed. And then, one final dream. She stood in the woods, beneath a bleeding moon. The boy sat on a rock, feet dangling over mist. He looked at her. Smiled. And for the first time, spoke. His voice was like wind across water. "You closed it." She nodded. "Will it stay closed?" The boy tilted his head. "Only if you forget it existed." She hesitated. "Can you forget?" He didn't answer. He only looked past her, into the trees. And behind her, she felt the watcher watching once more. Not angry. Not hungry. Just, aware. Waiting for someone else to remember. Eleanor no longer dreamed of fog. Not for a time. The world settled around her like a coat, warm and worn. She rebuilt her days, coffee in the garden, long walks to the square, evenings with tea and the old radio. Life, as it had once been, returned. But it never returned entirely. There was a quiet in the walls now. Not hollow, listening. A watching that never blinked. She didn't mind it. Not anymore. It was like carrying a scar that had grown familiar. Autumn returned. And with it, the leaves, crimson, amber, golden, and brittle. The air took on its bite again, and the days grew shorter. It was during one of these brisk afternoons that she received a letter. No stamp. No name. Just a folded page slipped through the mail slot. It read, "The door is opening elsewhere." She took the letter to Mrs. Calder. The woman examined it without surprise, only quiet resignation. "I wondered when the next would come," she murmured. "The next what?" Mrs. Calder looked at her as if Eleanor already knew. "A door never closes unless another opens." There were rumors then. People from other towns arriving, pale, sleepless, speaking of fogs that whispered. A child wandered into the bakery one morning and asked for her father, a man who had been dead for 40 years. A group of hikers were found deep in the hills, all facing the same direction, eyes open, but unmoving. And every night, the wind carried a scent not of autumn leaves, but of salt, and damp earth, and smoke. Eleanor began writing again. Not journals. Not letters. Maps. She sketched places she had never visited, old stone manors surrounded by dead gardens, crumbling churches with windows made of soot, lighthouses standing in oceans made of mist. Each map had a mark, a door. Black. Unlabeled. Some opened into houses. Some into graves. One into a mirror. She didn't know how she knew these places. Only that they were real. By midwinter, others began dreaming, too. The villagers whispered about it, but never aloud. A boy woke screaming about the woman in the wall. An old man refused to sleep at all, claiming the stairwell is different at night. Eleanor was not afraid, not yet. But she knew what was coming. The fog was no longer bound to the house. It had learned her name. And now it was learning others. She visited the woods one final time. The trees had grown taller. Or perhaps the sky had shrunk. She reached the clearing where she had once played. Where the boy had smiled. Where the watcher had first blinked. The clearing was not empty. A new door stood in the ground. Not upright, flat, like a trapdoor. Old iron hinges. Charred wood. A symbol carved into its center. It was the same one from her grandmother's journal. She knelt beside it. Placed her hand on the symbol. The wood was warm. And beneath it, something breathed. She did not open it. She poured salt in a circle around it. She lit a single black candle. She left her old photograph in the center, the one of her and the boy. Then she walked away, without looking back. As she passed the tree lean, the wind carried a voice behind her. A child's voice. Not calling. Just saying, "Thank you." Winter deepened. Snow muffled the village. The fog, though never seen, was felt. People became quieter. Sleepier. Not tired, lulled. Something was soothing them. Eleanor knew what that meant. The watcher was learning to sing. And then, one night, a knock. Not at the front door. At the walls. From inside. Soft. Rhythmic. Like fingertips tapping bone. She stood in her hallway, candle flickering, heart slow and steady. The knocking continued. Not begging. Not threatening. Just, reminding. She whispered into the dark, "Not this house. Not again." The knocking stopped. The next day, she found a child on her porch. Different than before. This one was a girl, pale and freckled, hair the color of moss. She didn't speak. Just handed Eleanor a note. It read, "I saw the door in my school. The janitor said it wasn't real. But I know it is." Eleanor nodded, crouched down, and took the girl's hand. "Do you remember anything else?" The girl looked into her eyes. Then softly whispered, there were eyes under the floor. The watcher was spreading. Not fast. Not loudly. But like mold in a forgotten room, slow, inevitable, intimate. It came not as plague, but invitation. To remember. To look. To notice the places that shouldn't be. Eleanor packed a satchel, rope, matches, salt, candles, the new journal. She left a letter for Mrs. Calder. If I don't return, don't follow. Close the doors. Burn the maps. Forget me. She followed the sketches she didn't remember drawing. Through towns with boarded churches and silent streets. Through fields where birds flew in circles, never leaving the same sky. Through libraries where pages turned themselves. And eventually, to a building that had no shadow. An orphanage, long burned. Only the lower walls remained. And in the basement, a door. Not black. But mirror glass. She saw herself in it, but older. Worn. Eyes cloudy. The reflection spoke, "You're too late." Eleanor opened the door. Not with hands. With remembrance. The moment she accepted the truth she had buried again and again, that she had been the one to let the watcher in, as a child, as a seeker, as a sleeper, the mirror dissolved. And behind it, a room. Stone walls. Wet air. Dozens of chairs, each facing a pulpit made of ash. In each chair, a child. Sleeping. Breathing. Not dreaming. Behind the pulpit, the watcher. It did not move. But something else did. The boy stepped forward. Not the same boy. An echo of him. An accumulation of lost names. He looked at her, calm. "I kept them safe," he said. Eleanor's voice cracked. "This isn't safe. It's better than what's coming." "What is coming?" He hesitated. Then whispered, "The door that does not close." Eleanor stepped toward the children. They were not harmed. Just paused. Suspended in a fog that clung to them like soft cloth. Some mouthed words in sleep. Some smiled. Some wept. She reached out and touched one child's hand. And in that moment, she felt it all, the storm coming across the world. The doors opening in cities, in fields, in homes. The watcher growing curious. The other watchers, stirring beneath earth and water. She turned back to the boy. "We can't stop it, can we?" He shook his head. "No. But you can choose where the door opens." Eleanor stood before the watcher. It had no face. No mouth. But she spoke to it anyway. "If I open it here, if I keep it here, will it stay?" The watcher did not answer. But the fog thickened. The children sighed. The mirror door behind her closed. And the choice was made. Eleanor sat in one of the chairs. She opened the journal. She wrote, "Let this be the place. Let this be the door. Let them forget." Back in the village, spring came. The trees bloomed. The fields grew. No one remembered the fog. No one dreamed of doors. Mrs. Calder kept the letter, unread, beneath her pillow. The girl with the moss-colored hair now laughed loudly and ran through the square. And in the farmhouse on the hill, now abandoned, the basement door was gone. Only a wall remained. And sometimes, if the wind was just right, you could hear children singing. Not words. Not melody. Just memory. 5 in another place, not far from now, there is a room with no doors. Its walls are made of breath, of silence, of waiting. And in its center sits a single chair, carved from driftwood, wrapped in ivy long dead. Eleanor sits in that chair. She does not age. She does not speak. She remembers. And in remembering, she keeps the door closed. But the world does not stop turning just because one room holds still. Far beyond the hills and mist and forgotten trails, another girl stirs. Her name is Marin. She lives in a small cottage with a red roof, where the wind speaks only when spoken to. And one night, just after the moon turns full, she dreams of a staircase that leads down forever. At the bottom, a door. Not black. Not mirrored. But red. And from behind it, a voice. A boy's voice. Not a warning. A lullaby. Marin wakes with tears on her face. She doesn't know why. She doesn't remember the dream. But the melody stays. A low hum, caught between two notes. She hums it at breakfast, and her mother pauses mid-sentence, forgetting what she was about to say. She hums it at school, and the teacher stares out the window for too long. She hums it walking home, and the sky darkens, just slightly, though no clouds are present. That evening, she finds something at the edge of her garden. A book. No title. No cover. Just pages, all blank except the last. On it, written in an ink that seems to breathe, the door does not forget. Beneath that, a second line. Faint. Almost erased. But someone must remember. Back in the room of no doors, Eleanor opens her eyes. For the first time in a long time, she feels. Not warmth. Not pain. But the shape of another dreamer. Someone else listening. Someone else nearing the place she once stood. She stands. The driftwood chair creaks. The room sighs. And then the wall begins to shiver. Not crumble. Not break. But loosen. As if the fog were remembering how to be air again. In the village, decades older now, Mrs. Calder wakes in her rocking chair, heart pounding. Something has changed. She crosses the floorboards of her home, slower now, older now, but still certain. Behind her pantry, where the shelves never fit quite right, she runs her fingers along the seams. She finds it, a thin line. A crack. A hidden door. And in that moment, she remembers Eleanor's letter. She never read it. But she had kept it. She opens it now. It says only, if the door returns, let it be to you. I am tired. The door opens. Not in the village. Not in Marin's home. Not in the stone room with Eleanor's breath. But in all of them, just a little. It cracks in dreams. It sighs through floorboards. It hums through phone lines. It glimmers in reflections. Because the watcher has waited. And waiting is remembering. In her sleep, Marin speaks. Not in her own voice. In Eleanor's. She says, if I show you the door, you must not open it. But the girl only smiles. I'm not here to open it, Marin replies. I'm here to close it. In the room of no doors, Eleanor kneels. She places her journal at her feet. Each page now filled, not with her words, but with the names of every dreamer who passed near the fog, who heard the whisper, who stepped close and stepped back. A ledger of restraint. A hymn of will. And then, she writes the final name, Marin. The watcher watches. Not as predator. Not as God. But as tether. It is not angry. It does not hunger. It waits. Because that is all it knows how to do. And somewhere within the waiting, a question begins to form, what happens if it is forgotten? What happens to a watcher with no one to watch? Marin enters the woods at dusk. She carries no salt. No candle. No journal. Only a mirror, small, cracked, framed in silver. She walks to the place where the trees grow unnaturally tall. Where birds do not sing. Where no path leads, but all paths end. She kneels and places the mirror in the soil. And waits. The fog comes. Thin. Curious. Careful. It surrounds her, but does not enter. Because she is humming again. The lullaby. The one the watcher cannot echo. Because it was never its song. Then the door appears. Red. Slightly open. No handle. No hinges. It breathes like skin. Marin stands, looks at it, and says softly, "No more." And the mirror in the ground shatters. The fog recoils. The door quivers. And from somewhere far beyond, Eleanor smiles. In the room with no doors, the walls collapse inwards. Not violently. Not cruelly. But as if a breath had finally been released. The watcher flickers. For the first time, it blinks. And then, it closes its eyes. The children in the pulpit room vanish. One by one. Peacefully. Their chairs remain, empty and warm. The ash settles. The fog clears. And where the watcher stood, there is now only a book. Its cover reads, "Do not look." But beneath it, a second title has been carved, "Or Look, and Let Go." Eleanor walks through a doorway made of light. She does not look back. Because no one is watching anymore. And that is how the fog finally forgets. Back in the village, the season turns. The fog rolls in, but it brings only rain. Children laugh. Doors creak. Dogs bark at the wind. No one dreams of staircases. No one sings the old song. But sometimes, Marin visits the woods. She stands where the door once opened. And she plants flowers there, ones that bloom only at dusk. She calls them memory blooms. And if you ask her why, she will smile and say, "They help us forget just enough." In her cottage, on a quiet hill, Marin keeps a journal. It's mostly drawings, birds, trees, faces, fog. But one page has only 2 lines, written in silver ink: "The watcher was not a monster. It was simply too lonely to sleep." And with that, the story ends. Not with fear. Not with escape. But with a choice, to carry the door quietly. Or to leave it where the fog can't find you. Either way, you'll sleep just fine. If you don't remember too much. Good night.